How's it going, everybody? Hopefully, everybody knows by now that the first thing I like to try to do is to make sure that everybody can hear me. So please spam the chats with like your favorite emoji or just let me know that you can hear me loud and clear. Oh man. Let's see here. I was looking back at the last time I actually did a live stream, and it looks like it was, let me see, let me pull up the exact date. Yeah, April 9th was the last time I did a live stream, and it was a straight pull live stream. And the last time I did a review live stream like this was back in March. So yeah, it's been quite some time since I've done a live stream. You all of y'all hear me talk all about how just work prevents me from being able to produce as much content as I would like. And if you've been following me lately, you'll know that I've been posting a lot of shorts on YouTube, reels, and reels on Facebook of these quick little drills that I'm actually able to get through, which hopefully would be able to show that if I'm able to get through them as an amateur player, hopefully you would be able to get through them as well. It might take you longer to get through them than it took me, but it's at least a drill that I think would be within everybody's skill set. Very quick to set up, hopefully doesn't take a whole lot of time. And let alone, it doesn't actually take me a whole lot of time to actually record, do some simple edits, since I'm showing a head cam, and sometimes I'll have an aerial view and a head cam at the same time. But that's all I have time to do, with the exception of today. I actually have BCA League for 8-ball that I have to go to tonight. And so I figured, well, before I go to League, let's just go ahead and try to knock this out. Because the two matches that I'm about to show, I actually wasn't intending on showing them. Not because of the way me and my opponent played or anything. I was just tired. Like, these two matches here are not even the final 2 weeks of the spring 2023 session. Typically what I like to do is when I'm going through a session, I record myself and I record my teammates so I can review their matches. And I do that pretty much throughout the entire session. But when it comes down to like the last four to 5 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, I'll just stop recording. Like I'm pretty much exhausted by that time frame of reviewing everybody's videos, reviewing my own videos, doing stuff like this. So I was actually going to scrap the two that I have here and just start fresh with summer 2023, which I already have one video. I'm waiting to get another one. But I'm sure what everybody's maybe interested in hearing is Vegas. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because I have other live streams that I'm planning on doing in the future where I'll talk more about it. But I'll say this. While I was in Vegas, which I had a lovely time doing, or had a lovely time being there. And by the way, here's my partner that was here with me, Josh. Good to see you here, bud. And we had a fantastic time. What made me want to do this particular live stream was the amount of people that came up to me and said their hellos. We took some pictures. I got to shake some hands. Met a lot of lovely people, and I wish I could remember everybody's names, but unfortunately I don't. But one of the things that stood out to me the most was the amount of people that came up to me and said how much they really enjoy this particular type of live stream. Watching me review my own play and giving myself tips, giving my opponents tips, doing whatever we can do, doing whatever I and the viewers, because y'all know I like to try to get the viewers involved as well. To be able to help not only myself, not only my opponent, and the viewers, and anybody that watches it after the fact. And that really hit me, and that pretty much made me want to do this particular live stream instead of scrapping the two videos and then just waiting. So it's one of the things where I would like to do this more. And then I'm also hearing not only reviewing my games, but how I used to review other people's games. And I've thought about it for a long time about possibly bringing that back. And I'm still thinking about it, but I'm now heavily considering it due to the vast amount of in-person requests that I got to be able to review other people's matches. My only concern about doing stuff like that is how overwhelming it was last time. I mean, I was getting tons and tons of requests for people to review their matches. And my only concern that I would have is if I were to put myself in a situation where I've received all these different requests to review. And of course, I go through and I review some of them. And then for any particular reason, I just happen to either skip somebody or overlook somebody, or just for my own sake, decide not to review their match for any particular reason. And then of course that's going to create a controversy, right? So I want to really put more thought into how I'm going to handle that situation before I decide to before I start reviewing other people's content. Because when I would review other people's matches, it was always a pre-recorded video that I would post. And that took a lot of time. But just like with this particular live stream, I figured the next best thing for me to do is to review other people's matches live, like this, with everybody else. Everybody else can give their critiques as well as much as myself. And I figured that would make it a little bit easier, a little less time consuming. And of course, I think it would be more fun because I would be able to involve all of the viewers as well. But like I said, I haven't really quite made that decision yet. I'm still putting at least some more thought into if I'm actually going to bring it back or not. But at the very least, we're going to get this here. Now, having said all that, let me make sure that I give my due diligence to my, I'm terrible at doing this, my sponsors and partners. There we go. We can start first with Onboard Sportswear. They are the makers of the jerseys that they for the Mosconi Cup. And typically I would have a jersey over here, but this is actually a mid-layer pullover. So you can see we have a long sleeve shirt, or like I said, a jacket, but it's more of a pullover. I've got my logo here, which I'm going to completely redo because if y'all have seen any of my latest updates, I now added the 14 ball right about here because I play a lot of 14-1 straight pool. So I'm about to actually get an overhaul of, or put in an order for an overhaul of new stuff or new apparel because of my new logo. Got the Onboard Sportswear logo here. And then of course we've got my logo here on the, what would be the left pec with the Onboard Sportswear on the right. And then this, my favorite color is red, right? I mean, look at my chair, right? I mean, my favorite color is red, so that's why my mid-layer jacket here is red. So yeah, you can, if you haven't done so already, you can visit their website and order jerseys, mid-layers, and jackets for yourself, especially if you're on some sort of league team or anything else. Next, we have Outsville. I've actually been a part of their affiliates program for quite some time, to where if you were actually to make a purchase from their website using my discount code, which I will show here in a minute, that I would get some sort of financial gain from that as well. And then most recently, I had acquired my sponsorship with TaomBilliards, but I don't have a discount code with them anymore. And then the most recent partnership, I don't know if we would call it a sponsor or not, is with Moonlighting Billiards. They are the company that makes these, I believe they're plastic, but they're clear plastic cutout templates to where you can actually set up rows of balls in a nice straight line or a curve, because they've just recently released some new products where you can get a curved template, so that way you can set up some drills rather quickly. Do you need them? Well, I mean, no, it just depends on how meticulous you are about setting up drills. You want to make sure that they're in a straight line. Do you want to make sure that they're perfectly evenly spaced apart? That's what these templates allow you to do. And so if you wanted to be able to buy any of these things, you can use any of my discount codes. For Onboard Sportswear, we have Lil Chris 10, and even for Moonlight Billiards, you can have Lil Chris 10. And then for Outsville, we have Lil apostrophe space Chris. All of these can give you 10% off of your purchase. It's just like I said, unfortunately, I don't have a discount code with TaomBilliards anymore. Okay, so there's at least that. What else? Let's see here. Well, I guess I'll spoil this. One of the latest things that I'm working on in my garage, since I've been doing. Hang on a second. Sorry, everybody. Everybody's like, what the heck is he doing? Since I've been doing a lot of drills lately in my garage. Y'all can't. Obviously, this is a box, and you don't know what's in the box, but I'm going to tell you what's in the box. This is a projector. And with the projector, I now have a system. I now have a system that I can hook up to the projector that's going to shine onto my table to where we can have illustration of drills. So if anybody's familiar with the ICA training system, because that's what this is, I hopefully will have it set up here in the near future, hopefully within this week. Then I gotta play with it, figure out how to get it all nicely set up, make sure that the light is shining bright enough onto my table and stuff, so that way I can physically draw on my table in my garage, cue ball paths, tangent line paths, shot lines, aim lines, all kinds of stuff. And I think that's going to be pretty cool to do. That's one of the latest projects that I have that I'm going to be working with, on top of all the other projects that I have floating around in my head that you always hear me say that I don't have time to do. And I just keep getting more and more stuff that basically goes in the backlog until I'm finally able to get it done. So yeah, I think that's it. How's everybody else doing? All right, so let's go ahead and get down to the nitty gritty. Like I said, I have 2 matches that I'm going to review. They're my own 8-ball matches. And then of course, if you want to talk about Vegas, I have 3 9-ball mini matches that I'm eventually going to review as well. I live streamed them all onto my Facebook page, Lil Chris Pool Player. And so I've already downloaded them all. So at some point in time, I'm going to do a review like this so that way you can watch me play 9-ball. How often do you ever get to watch me play 9-ball? I mean, it's been ages since I posted an APA 9-ball match, since I don't really even play on my APA 9-ball team anymore. And then lo and behold, I talked my partner into doing this. We have 5 matches that I was able to live stream onto my Facebook page. And I talked my partner into coming over sometime, and we're going to review those as well. Now, what I can say is we're probably not going to review all 5 matches in one live stream. That would take an extremely long time, and I don't know how much time he has to spare. So I said at the very least, what we can possibly do is review 1 match at a time. So there would be 5 separate live streams where we would review each of the matches individually. Those are planning on coming in the future as well. That way you can hear from my partner what it was like playing with me, what it was like playing in Vegas for the first time, because it was his first time in Vegas. And then, of course, we talk about the same stuff of like what we did and what we could have done better, which is the same thing I'm about to do here with one of my matches. Okay, let's see. I think that's everything. I'm pretty sure I'm missing something. I know everybody's experienced that before, where you think you've talked about everything, or you think if you're about to go on a trip, you think you got everything, and then you get about halfway there and you realize you forgot something. And I'm pretty sure I'm doing the same thing. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and go to the first match. How'd y'all like that new transition that I did? Okay. So I don't know if you saw during the transition, you actually got to see my new logo where I added the 14 ball on there as well. And you can barely see it. Like there's the 14 ball right there. So yeah, let's see here. Okay, it looks like I'm trying to make sure the screen is entirely set up, because I did kind of just throw this together on the fly. So everything looks good here. So For those that may be new to my live streams, this is an APA 8-ball match of mine, and I play as a skill level 7. Now, my opponent is a skill level 6, so that's why you see over here on the scoreboard that the race is 5-4. It's my 5 to my opponent's 4. And so what I'm going to do here is we're going to watch the match. I'm going to commentate everything that I was doing, what I was thinking. At least I'm going to try to remember what I was thinking, because these are relatively old matches. Like, these are probably close to 2 months old. I'm sure I'm going to be able to remember some stuff, but then I'm pretty sure there's going to be things that I'm going to forget about what I was doing as well. And then while my opponent is playing, I'll be trying to commentate as to what I think my opponent is doing. And then, if there's something I don't agree with that my opponent does, then that creates a discussion to where I can offer, my 2 cents of what I think my opponent should have done. Sometimes I try to get the viewers involved as to what could have been done, even for myself, when it comes to run out patterns and so on and so forth. And so if you look over here in the upper right corner, you see this cue ball diagram. And I use the red dot here to indicate where I'm hitting at on the cue ball, if I'm using any type of side spin, top spin, bottom spin, or everywhere in between. So hopefully when you're looking at this stuff after the fact, if you read it through any of the chats or just, listening to any of the advice that I have, if you find that you might be having similar issues, then hopefully the things that we talk about during this live stream will help you get better at resolving those issues. So I think that's it. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see who's going to break first. So we do that by determining that with a lag. This is where we take the object balls that we're using. My opponent's using a 9-ball and I have a 10-ball. We're going to shoot the ball over to the foot rail, and whoever gets closest to the head rail is going to be the one that breaks first. And it looks like I'm going to lose because I hit that really softly. So we got a little lag there from my video player. Sorry about that, but I did lose the lag. I'm just going to go ahead and speed up to where my opponent breaks. Okay, so let's see here. Opponent does a very nice head-on break there. Was actually able to get the cue ball to land near the middle of the table, and it looks like he made stripes on the break. So let me take a look. 9, this is the 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Looks like he made the 15 ball here. Okay, so actually I'm not going to mention the typical advice I mentioned during my opponent's turn. We'll wait till it's my turn. I'll just try to commentate through what my opponent does. Looks like maybe we're going to start off with a 3-ball combination. Okay, good stuff there. 12 ball is down. Probably at least wanted to make sure that we didn't tie up the 14 ball to go with it. Like that's always a hard thing to try to figure out what to do when you're doing a 3-ball combination, especially if the middle ball is an opponent's ball. And it looks like we tried another 3-ball combination. Okay, so now I get to come to the table. And so if you're new to my live stream, what do I do when I come to the table? Well, the first thing I always do is I look around the table and I have to see where every single solitary one of my my balls are at. And this is odd. Why am I not able to? Give me just a second, everybody. My drawing tool is not working for whatever reason. This is what I get for being unprepared. But I'm usually pretty quick to recover. Just a second. Let's try this again and draw a circle. There we go. Okay. So what I typically like to do when I come to the table, and this is every time I come to the table, is I have to look and see where every one of my balls are at, since I am solids. And once I identify where everyone is at, I have to be able to determine which ones are going to be the hardest ones for me to deal with. Some are going to be pretty obvious to identify, and some maybe not so obvious. but at least with the layout of this table, it should be pretty clear that this is going to be a very difficult situation for me to deal with. And what I typically try to do with stuff like this is I have to figure out how can I free up my one ball as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Doesn't always have to be right now. Meaning that like I have to take my very first shot and try to solve the problem. And what I mean by trying to solve the problem, as you see, Sensei Nate Plays Pool is talking about use the 6 to break out the 1, right? Because what he's talking about is shooting the 6 ball into the side pocket here, and hopefully that the natural tangent line will bring me right over here and make my opponent's 11 ball and hopefully get the 10 ball out of the way, and maybe I'll be able to make the 1 ball in the corner pocket as well. Now, maybe this might not be the natural tangent line. I might have to use a little bit of bottom spin, but stuff like this is what I end up thinking about. And if you're not thinking about stuff like this, I would recommend that you should think about stuff like this. The problem that you might start running into is that you'll notice that your gameplay or your rate of play starts to slow down, which I think is perfectly fine, except for don't take too long thinking about stuff like this because you don't want your opponents complaining to you about slow play. But you can't get faster at thinking about this stuff until you practice doing this stuff. So that's at least why I recommend it. Now, Nate, I don't really remember if that's what I did, but we do know that this becomes a priority. And I'm not entirely sure if this becomes a priority. I think the 3 ball can be freely made into this corner pocket without fouling. I'm not entirely sure. But even if it can't, I can use the 7 ball to go into this pocket here and possibly separate them. I can use the 2 ball into this pocket and possibly separate them. Those are at least things that I already have planned out to be able to try to solve the problems if I'm able to put the cue ball in positions to be able to execute these types of shots. Now, once I start doing all of that, then I just start trying to pick apart, whatever pattern that I was able to do. And it looks like we have one of the people that I met in Las Vegas, Chaz Adams, says it was nice to meet you in Vegas and follow you around. I really do appreciate it. Like anybody that came up to me and said hi, it was always a pleasure to meet everybody. Got a couple people that wanted to take some pictures, and so that was awesome. All right, so I don't remember what I started with. Nate, I don't think I tried to break out the 1 ball right now. Let's see what I do. I can't tell if I'm shooting the 6 or the 5. Well, Nate, maybe that was what I was trying to do, right? Because the whole theme of this whole stream is trying to solve problems, and I failed to solve the problem on that particular shot there. All right, so let's see. There goes the 6 ball. So now, what did I say earlier about trying to improve the 3 ball? Am I going to try to do that with the 7 ball here, like I just mentioned? And see, that's what I tried to do, right? We're trying to constantly solve problems so that way we can run the table and not allow my opponent to come back to the table. But now, what the heck am I going to do here? How am I going to be able to free up the 1 ball? So because we've moved a couple of balls, you can see here now, I'm starting to plan, like how are we going to make that happen? So I went ahead and dropped the 3 into the corner. And now we should be able to see, hopefully, that it looks like I'm probably going to try to do this and break the cluster up again. Or try to break the cluster up. But again, 2 for 2 at being unsuccessful at breaking up the cluster. All right, so here's where I'm going to want some viewer involvement here. What would y'all do now? You're me. You're at the table here. What do we do? What do we do? Like, are we running the table now because of the 1 ball being stuck the way it is? What do we possibly do here? Does anybody have any thoughts? Or do we stop, try to play some sort of safety, and hope that our opponent doesn't run the table? Because those are my 2 options. I can either continue trying to run and see if I can actually complete this table, or I can try to give my opponent an opportunity to win the game from here, but I have to try to make it as difficult as I possibly can. Let's see. Near Sharoni, you're saying, do I pre-pick a ball that will lead to the 8-ball? I do that when I have the table in a solved state. And right now, the table is not in a solved state, you know, because I was trying to break up the 3-ball that was up here, and I've been trying to break out the 8-ball. So while I'm trying to break clusters apart and stuff and put the table into a solved state, I can't pick a key ball that's going to get me to the 8-ball just yet. All right, what do we got here? Let's see. We got Chris Schneider says to bank the 2 and block that pocket. So we're possibly talking about blocking this pocket, I would think. Maybe, right? Because that's where the 9-ball can go, and we can also block the 8-ball. I like that. Chaz is saying tie up the 2-9. So that kind of coincides with what Chris was talking about. I would bank the 2 over here by the 9-ball and create a cluster. It's a cluster for myself, but it's a cluster that also delays the game for my opponent. Terry CHRTT, try to cross side on the 4 with the intention to pocket the stripe and take over the pocket. I kind of like that idea. Why? Because most of the time I'm pretty aggressive when I play. The only problem is that when you're this kind of aggressive, sometimes you don't get rewarded for it. Right? I took 3 attempts at freeing up the 1-ball, and I finally got it. But to what avail? I can't see my 2-ball. Right? The 2-ball is blocked by the 14-ball. Right? So you have to pick and choose your battles here. You know, weigh out the percentages. Was it worth it? You know, what are the odds that I was relying on so much luck that I would be able to get position on the 2? Chris Nauschneg, I hope I said that correctly. Thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel. So here, all I can do is try to make a legal hit. I at least hit the 2-ball. 2-ball hits the 9, and see, so this was months ago. So when I look at this, that's a foul as far as I'm concerned. But I don't think I remember at the time that I saw that it was a foul, and I don't even think my opponent saw it was a foul. So this is kind of a shame on me kind of thing, where I should have paid more attention, so that way my opponent would know that they have ball in hand. Because if I foul, I'm going to tell someone that I foul. But this would be one where I actually just did not see that I fouled. I know that I at least kicked the 2 and would have been certain that I must have had some sort of rail contact afterwards, but didn't. So my opponent shoots and then misses, and then look, right? I bank the 2-ball into the pocket, and I don't get a shot at the 8-ball. So the only thing I could do here is try to kick at the 8-ball. Now, here's the thing, though. When it comes to kicking at the 8-ball, especially depending upon the angle at which the cue ball is going to approach the 8-ball, this is not a shot that I want to directly kick the 8-ball into the pocket. Why? Because I'd be worried about the cue ball following the 8-ball in and scratching from this particular angle. The idea would be, is like, you would think you would want to try to do something like this, right? But if I hit that 8-ball too squarely, then the cue ball could just follow it in afterwards, and I end up losing the game. So like we already see in the chat here, the intention is to try to 2-rail it in. So that way my cue ball goes off this way here. So I don't particularly have a reliable system that allows me to accurately judge a kick like this. So the only thing I did try to do was start with a direct kick. So I at least have my reference points of where I'm going to kick to do a direct kick. And then I'm pretty much guessing after that, how much more do I have to adjust to make sure that I catch the side rail before I hit the 8-ball. And that's what you see me do here. The only problem is that when you get to a point to where you're guessing, there's always the high possibility that you can guess wrong. right? So there at least right there. I know I definitely fouled there. So my opponent has ball in hand. Now, this is the part that I always love to discuss, regardless of what your skill level is, skill level 2 all the way up to skill level 7. You have ball in hand in a complete wide open table. How do you run out from here? There's more than one answer, but there's at least a couple of answers that are probably going to be the easiest for almost any skill level to do. And when I say any skill level to do, I'm just talking about very little movement on the cue ball. The only thing you hopefully have to rely on is your aiming, which it's apparent that higher skill level players aim better or aim, what's the word? They aim accurately, more accurately than lower skill level players. But even lower skill level players would hopefully be able to come up with some sort of pattern that would be able to allow them to run out. So we got Sensei Nate Poole. He's saying start from the bottom side and work your way towards the 8. So it sounds like you want to start with maybe the 10 or the 13 and then work your way up. That's. I didn't get that. Could you try again? Did anybody hear that? Apparently, Big Tech is listening to me as my watch somehow heard everything I said and tried to search on whatever it was that it recorded. That's pretty funny. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Chris Schneider says the same thing. Work towards the 8 ball. So it sounds like we've got an agreement of starting somewhere with the 10 or the 13 and kind of working our way up. Luke B says start with the 9, go to the 14, go to the 13, then the 10 and the 8. Kind of like that idea. Let's see. Chaz, you're saying start with the 11. This is the 13 ball. I know it's difficult to see the numbers here, but I'm pretty sure this might be what you're talking about. So you're saying start with the 11, come back up for the 9, then go to the 10, and then go to the 14. Obviously that works, but that's a lot of cue ball movement. And when there's a lot of cue ball movement, there does leave the possibility of error that can occur because you can hit too hard, you can hit too soft. But when you're minimizing your cue ball movement, the likelihood of you not succeeding decreases, which means the percentage of you being successful increases. So, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here, but I think we can all agree that there are some answers that are actually easier. So I know like this is what a lot of people are possibly talking about. I've got some that are possibly saying maybe we should start here and shoot the 13 ball into the corner pocket and stun over for the 10 ball to go into the same corner pocket. That way we can play a stop shot to go to the 14 and then shoot the 9 and just easily move this way. Nothing wrong with that. That is certainly possible, and it obviously works. I would have to think that the hardest shots that are what on the table is the stun shot, right? Because you can stun too far, and then therefore you have a back cut shot on the 10 ball. But then maybe some will say, well, maybe we should stun over to the 14. Like all that works. Some of the other answers that I've seen in the chat here, I do agree more with. And that's to start with this guy and work our way down. The only reason why I suggest doing that is because when we end with either one of these 2 balls, we're going to have a shot at the 8 ball, no matter what. It's just a matter of, can we make it, a relatively easy shot if we get flat on the 8 ball, fairly straight in or something. So there was one suggestion that I saw, which I think it was Luke B's. That I personally agree with, and that is starting with the 9 ball, little angle here, so that way it naturally comes over here for the 14 ball, and you can pretty much do whatever you want. He's suggesting 13-10. I don't particularly care if it's 13-10 or 10-13. And what I mean by 10-13 is when you play the 14 ball, you can roll forward, get flat on the 14 or flat on the 10, stop shot, and then play the 8, or roll forward and get flat on the 8. Personally, I like this a little bit better. We're not worried. All we're doing is we're either hitting slightly above center with the cue ball because we're doing a rolling cue ball, or slightly below center because we're doing some sort of stop shot. This is a particular pattern that I would personally go with myself. Now, having said all that, let's see what my opponent decides to do. And it looks like I'm not accurate with what's on the table, so I'm going to take the 11 off the table. So he decides he wants to start with the 10. So this coincides with some of the other suggestions of starting at the bottom and working your way up, which is doable. Let's see what he does. So there's the part where I was talking about 10 in the corner, 13 in the corner. He's got some topspin on his cue ball. I'm not sure I particularly agree with that. And you can see what I'm talking about when we're talking about moving your cue ball. Now, when we look at the movement of this cue ball, what exactly was he trying to do? Did he want to stop right here, maybe? Or did he hit it too soft because he wants to be able to shoot the 14 into the side pocket? This is the risk that you start running when you try to move your cue ball a little too much, just a little too much. But he's still at the table. Let's see what he's able to do with the 14 ball. Okay, he's able to make it. Gets a fairly decent angle on the 9 ball. The only problem with this 9 ball is that you kind of have to punch it off of the rail, because the flatter you get, right, the thicker the hit that you're going to have on the 9 ball makes it a little bit more tougher. Looks like he's trying to draw it, and that's exactly what he does. I personally would have done maybe a stun shot and tried to just come straight down towards the middle of the table. And then unfortunately, leaves me the 8 ball. Now, one thing I could talk about, at least in APA, because you haven't seen it here, is that in APA, when you're shooting the 8 ball, you're supposed to take some sort of personal marker and place it next to the pocket that you intend on making it on, so that way there is no confusion on where you're going to make the 8. Because in APA, you don't have to call your shots. The only shot that you have to call is the 8 ball, and that's typically done by marking the pocket with some sort of personal object. Now, at the local level here, typically most of the higher ranking skill level players typically would just agree with calling the shot, and that's pretty much what me and my opponent decided to do. We agreed that we can just call the shot. So unfortunate that my opponent was actually able to take that rack from me. But with that bobble on the 8 ball, I'm able to take the first rack. So now with my break here. All right, here I'm always doing the pop break. I'm trying to smack that cue ball, or smack that rack as hard as I can with the best amount of control that I can, so that way the cue ball will pop into the air and hopefully squat near the center of the table. And with balls flying all over the place, it's usually pretty common that sometimes a ball will come and knock the cue ball out of the way. What I don't want to see is the cue ball to pop into the air, land back on the table, and go either here or here into either of the side pockets, because that's usually fairly common. And that will tell me, if that happens, how straight am I actually aiming on the break. So what I typically do when I try to do the pop break is I have a very, very high bridge. If I were to, and my elbow is picked up way into the air. So if I were to drop my elbow and actually have a leveled cue, because right now my cue looks like this, pointing at the cue ball. If I were to level out my cue, the tip of my cue would actually be somewhere way up here. That's how high my fingers are when I actually do my my pop break. But when I pick up my elbow, then my cue ends up pointing down here at a elevated hit. So I'm essentially going to jump the cue ball into the rack. But what really happens is, because since I'm not really elevated to like do a like an actual jump shot, the cue ball kind of skips its way over to the rack. And what I want to happen is I want that skipping to be timed just right to where the cue ball is actually in the air when it strikes the rack, because that's what's going to cause it to pop into the air. Now, because my cue is pointing straight down at the table, I don't want to hit the table. So you're going to see my cue kind of come up at the last second, so that way I don't touch the table. See that? The cue ball kind of just pops into the air, but we can also see that the cue ball goes forward after it lands back on the table. So what that tells me is that I must have dropped my elbow too soon before I struck the cue ball, and I must have struck the cue ball somewhere right around here. Because really, like I said, I would want the cue ball to pop its way back, hopefully behind the side pockets, and then just stop near the middle of the table. Now, I did make some balls on the break. What the heck did I make? 1, 2, looks like the 3 ball is gone. 4, 5, and the 6 ball is gone. 7, 8, so 9. I think that's the 10. I don't see the 11 ball, so we have an open table. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So there we go. I made 3 balls on the break. So I'm pretty much dealing with an open table. And so now that I have an open table, this is where I pretty much do the same exact thing. I'm going to choose a set. And when I decide whatever set that I'm going to choose, then I do the same thing where it's like I'm looking at every ball on the table. The only difference is that when I have an open table, I'm looking at every ball on the table because which set do I think is runnable? And with this one here, I don't think stripes is runnable because of this. Because even though it's an open table, I can claim stripes by trying to combo the 5 ball into the 14 ball and have it go in. But then what the heck am I going to do with this 13 ball? There isn't a ball, in my opinion, close enough to this cluster to be able to break this apart for me to have enough confidence that I can break it apart and have some sort of shot to go along with it. But I can do this with solids because of the 1 ball being where it's at. The 1 ball I can make into this pocket and then have the cue ball hit the rail and break the 2 out. Now, I'm still going to have some sort of an issue, maybe to deal with this 4 ball, but I can also possibly try to just cheat the pocket, catch the rail before it goes in and still have it possibly fall in. And that's going to allow me to shoot the 8 ball over here. All right, so these are all the little things that I start to think about as to how I'm going to try to choose between solids and stripes. So I do believe, at least on this rack here, I do try to choose solids. The only unfortunate part is I have a really close shot at the 7 ball that's actually leading right here. So I have to make some sort of an adjustment to get the 7 ball to go this way. And if anybody's, how many of y'all have difficulty aiming cut shots when the object ball is really close to the cue ball and you end up doing something like this, right? Because I know I can't be the only one. So the table is still open. All right, so let's see what kind of assessment my opponent makes on whether or not if they want to choose solids or stripes. So he's gonna like stripes. So he overcuts the 10 ball, but does everybody see why he chose the 10 ball? The first thing I thought of was, well, if he's choosing stripes, why doesn't he just go ahead and just take this duck out of the way? All right, so that way he knows he's going to be at the table. But I actually really liked what my opponent tried to do here. He chose a harder shot rather than an easy shot in order to be able to break out a ball at the same time. This is a really good decision. It's just unfortunate that we didn't execute it successfully. Because let's just say he makes the ball, right? Let's say the 10 ball goes in, he bumps the 2 ball, and let's say the cue ball actually stops right here to where he can't shoot the 13 into the side, right? Actually, let's get me out of the way. Like, why is this such a good decision? So let's right here. So let's say this is what he does. He makes the ball and the cue ball is nestled up next to the 13 ball and he can't make it into the side pocket. He can shoot the 14 next. Right? So this is usually a good thing when you see stuff like this. And I always try to help my intermediate players, because typically I wouldn't advise this to like my lower skill level players. Usually I'm just like, hey, just make a ball. Make a ball and keep learning where the cue ball goes. But when you start seeing stuff like this becomes a very powerful thing to be able to do because you're in really good control of the table. You make a ball, you break up a cluster, you unfortunately don't have a shot at the ball that was in the cluster, but you have a backup shot, an insurance shot to be able to go with it. So now if he were to make it, he can make the 14, then he can make the 13, and then try to figure out what to do here. So I think this was a really good decision by my opponent. He just didn't make the shot, unfortunately. So I'm solids, which is the set that I wanted to be in the first place. Oh no, never mind. I'm not solids. I forgot. He was going for stripes. And since he broke up the 13 for me, I'm going to take stripes from him. I forgot the table was still open since he failed to make his ball. All right, so you can see here, like I'm pretty much doing the pattern that I think he would have wanted to do. There, I'm making sure that I don't get, like I know my cue ball is going to hit that 8 ball, and I don't want my cue ball to get stuck. There, just a rolling cue ball to pocket the 15 ball, get automatic position for the 12, and probably with a rolling cue ball again, just roll up to the short rail and come back out for position on the 8. 8 ball straight into the pocket. And I'm able to take rack 2. Okay, let's see if I can pop the cue ball a little bit better this time. Now that's better. That's a lot better. Like this is the result that I'm looking for, at least with my cue ball. And then look at the spread that I get. Now, in League, the spread is not guaranteed to be something like this because we are using a regular rack. You know, sometimes I can get a little unfortunate, and there's going to be a lot of clusters depending upon how many gaps were actually in the rack and how the balls actually spread apart. But let's see, what did I make on the break? We got the 1, 2, 3. I think this is the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like I might be stripes. I don't see the 9 ball. 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, so it looks like the 9 ball's gone. So it looks like I'm stripes. All right, so when we look at this, where are my trouble spots, right? Because now we just rinse and repeat since I'm a closed set right after the break. I have this ball, this ball, this ball, this ball, this ball, and this ball. Which ones are my problem balls? It looks like there's only one, which is the 13 ball here. But fortunately, with this 10 ball being here, I can use the 10 ball either to go into the corner pocket and move the 13 ball. I can shoot the 10 ball into the side pocket and move the 13 ball. Like there's definitely ways that I can deal with that 13 ball. But I am going to try to prioritize solving that 13 ball because there's nothing else for me to have to solve. But now that I look at it, I did forget about this guy, right? It does look like he's blocked over here. I don't know if I can squeeze past the 2 ball, or maybe I can try to force my way through the 2 ball, like I would make my opponent's 2 ball and make my ball at the same time. So it looks like I would possibly have to try to shoot this ball into either of these pockets, which means I need to get my cue ball somewhere down here. So that's something I have to consider as well. But my priority right now is definitely the 13 ball. So I elect to start with a combination. This looks like I'm going to be shooting with some top left spin because I want my cue ball to come around this way. I'm actually trying to break the 13 out right now. See that? And I was successful. Probably that would probably be a more accurate representation of how much spin I had on the ball. So now I'm going to try to cut the 13 into the side. This is a really, really thin cut shot because the 13 ball is past the halfway point of the side pocket. I think I just have a little bit of draw on this. Nope, that was definitely draw. I always love how I have to do this. Draw a little and a little bit of right spin in order to keep the cue ball where it's at. And you can see right there, like this is what I'm talking about, to where it's like, wait, what am I gonna do with this guy? How am I gonna solve this guy? So one thing I can say is that I typically see some players basically pay attention to what it is that they're doing, and they're not really paying attention to what they will be doing. They're not thinking far enough ahead as to how are they going to be able to solve the entire table. And that takes practice. I don't expect anybody to be able to do that like overnight or, you know, after one session of trying to think that far ahead, right? Because from here, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be trying to get position on this ball. See that right there? As I stun off of this ball, knowing that the cue ball is going to come over here, and now I'm in position where I can shoot this ball. And then here I'm just checking to see, can I make the 11 ball into the side pocket? And I can. It's just that the window to pass the point of the side pocket is really freaking small. So like that, like this is a simple trick to know whether or not if you can make the ball with the cue ball is, can you shoot the object ball straight into the pocket with just your cue? Because if you can, then you should be able to do it with a cue ball. The only problem is that it's harder to do with a cue ball. All right, so I draw the cue ball back to try to get perfectly straight with that 11 ball. Osong Osi, thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel. And am I able to make this into the side pocket? This is a very tight window. And you can see I didn't even hit the cue ball hard enough because I hit it with bottom spin, but the bottom spin's gone by the time the cue ball gets there, and I almost scratch. But I'm able to make it. I have a shot at the 8 ball. Let's see if I'm going to be able to make the 8 ball. And I do. And I believe that was a break and run. So all I can hope for is the way I talk about how I try to piece apart the rack, especially when the rack is runnable. Because if I believe there are points during this match and even in the next match that I'll actually determine that the layout of the table is not runnable, and you're going to actually see me do some sort of safety. So because like I've talked about before, to where you have to be aware of what you're capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing. And if you know that the run out is outside of your skill set, you shouldn't try to force something that you don't have the likelihood of doing. And even myself, I have limits to that. So when stuff like that comes up, that's when you're going to see me do some sort of a defensive shot. Again, another decent spread. Didn't really get quite the pop that I was looking for, and the cue ball just kept kind of like dribbling its way back. And I broke dry anyway. Hey Craig, how's it going? Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and get this stream out of the way because these are the last matches that I have for the spring 2023 session before I start looking at the summer of 2023. And I have BCA League later on tonight, so that's why I ended up doing a midday stream. All right, so my opponent's at the table now. He's running out stripes, or he's trying to run out stripes. Almost broke out his 12 ball, which would have been ideal. Oh, there we go. Star-Lord INOG, he caught me when I was at one of the slot machines, and it had to have been the Game of Thrones slot machine because that was the only one that I happened to play when I was there. And I do remember a couple of people coming up and saying hi to me when I was playing on the slot machine. So really do appreciate it. Now my opponent's doing a decent job at running the table here. Now this is the only thing that's different to me. So like I have every reason to believe. Wait, where's the 8 ball? Okay, so here's the 8 ball sitting here into the side pocket. So my opponent plays this combination, which causes the 15 ball to work its way over here. Yep, just like this. So yeah, from this position, my opponent has the in my opinion, my opponent has the opportunity to be able to win the rack. This was the only shot that I would offer something different, because look what my opponent does besides missing. Like the missing part wasn't the point. Because had he made it, I don't think he would have still ran the table. So let's look at what he does. Right? See, it looks like he doesn't put any side spin. Looks like he just hits it with just a rolling cue ball. So had he made it, what would he have done here? At least from the camera angle, I cannot tell if the 12 ball passes by the 2 ball to where you'd have to play a 12-14 combination. Maybe for argument's sakes, he wanted to hit this side rail, come all the way out to where he can see just the 14 ball, make the 14 ball, and possibly try to break out his 12. Maybe that's what he was trying to do. I'm not entirely sure. And speaking of which, we have 12, 14, and 15. So these balls are gone. So maybe that's what he was trying to do. What I would most likely suggest here is instead of a rolling cue ball, he should have thrown some right spin on the cue ball. Right? So that way, what hopefully would happen is he would knock this ball in, the cue ball would hit the rail and spin over here and move both of these balls. Right? The 12 ball, at the very least, should be probably somewhere right here, which means it's going to be out into the open. And since we're running into a cluster this way, that means our cue ball should land hopefully somewhere right here, which guess what? Now we can shoot the 14 ball. But we're also in a position where we can shoot the 14 ball, get position on the 12, and then have the 8 set up for the side pocket as well. That would be the biggest change that I would have suggested to my opponent at this particular spot. Is there, judging by the way the cue ball reacted, that looks like it was just a natural roll. No side spin was put on that shot. Okay, so look at this table. Is this table runnable? Typically, I'm probably going to try. I'm probably going to try to figure out how it's runnable, but what the heck am I going to do? 2 ball, 1 ball, 4-7 cluster, 6-5 cluster, and the 3 ball sitting right over here. Might be able to do a combo. Not entirely sure what I'm going to do here. Not entirely sure what I'm going to do here. If I make the 3 ball, maybe at least the 2 ball will go here. All right, so this is definitely a hard table. So we can see here, it looks like I'm going to try to line up for a combination. So what you saw me do there was I pretended that the 6 ball was the cue ball. And how do I shoot the 6 ball into the 5 in order to make the combination? So that way I can do a ghost ball reference of knowing how I'm going to try to hit the 6 ball. And you can see here, it looks like I did try to break up the 4-7 cluster at the same time and was not successful. What do I do here? Since I'm standing over here looking, I'm probably looking to see, can I make the 1 ball into the corner pocket? The real question should be, should I make it? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure at this point, this is where I'm going to stop. And I'm going to play some sort of a defensive shot. And that's what I do. Now, my opponent can easily get lucky here since he's got a ball hanging in the pocket. If he can at least make a legal hit on his 12 ball or his 14 ball, like the likelihood of that miss touching the 15 ball and falling is pretty good. But this is where I can say to myself, yeah, the layout of the table is too hard for me to try to run out, and I'm not going to try to force it. I will gamble on this. All right, so I don't know if that was a foul or not, but I didn't have someone come and watch the shot. My opponent doesn't think it was a foul, so I just go with it. And now the layout of the table has gotten harder. So what do we do here? There are options. And again, I can try to make something happen. Like, do I want to try to make the 3 ball into the corner pocket and with bottom left spin, pull this back and try to just separate all this mess? That's certainly a possibility, but why take all that risk? I guess it would just depend on the situation. All right, so what do? I play another safety. All right, and this is why I always stress to my beginning player teammates. You have to know where that cue ball goes even when you're making a shot. Because when you're going to purposely miss a shot like I just did, I want to purposely put that cue ball in a position that makes it difficult for my opponent to be able to see a shot. Because he's forced to play some sort of kick shot. Now, at least here, you're going to see me try to attack. I'm going to look around at a couple of things. And what I end up settling on was I want to pocket the 3 ball and draw the cue ball back and knock my opponent's 15 ball in, because that allows me to play a 1-2 combination. So I do at least try that. It's like chess, right? I'm looking for moments to attack, and this is a moment where I try to attack but I fail at the second objective at what I wanted to do. The first objective was to make the 3-ball, which I was successful at. The second objective was to pocket my opponent's 15-ball, and I failed at doing that. So because that pocket is still blocked, I have to be patient, right? Look at all the problems that I'm trying to solve on this table here in order to be able to win the rack, because I can easily lose this rack if I just continue to make balls. My opponent has the advantage right now since he's occupying the pocket. So let's see here. I do at least think I go ahead and try to make the 7-ball because I don't really have a decent ball that I can play safe with. So I do at least do that. And I think here is where I play another safety. Right? Because viewers, be honest with me. How many of y'all would make this ball and then try to figure out what to do with maybe the 4-ball or the 1-ball? How many of y'all would do that? Be honest. Because this is what I do with my 6-ball instead. I purposely miss it, and I try to stick the cue ball in a very difficult position. Right? My opponent can see the 12-ball, which is great. If he decides to move it, that opens up my 4-ball. That's awesome. That at least helps me. See? So now my 4-ball's open. All right, so that's kind of good. Now I can still try to make the 6, but I'm not ready to attack, right? I'm playing chess. I'm setting up my pieces. All right? So what am I going to do here? Right there, that's a contemplation of whether or not do I want to play the 1-2 combination and see if I can get the 2-ball to sneak past the 15-ball. And I go, nope, that's too risky. Not going to do that. So I decided to do this. Right, another safety. If anybody thinks that playing safeties isn't valuable, I mean, I would hopefully show you that this would prove that wrong. However, playing safeties is just as difficult as playing a ball and getting position on another ball. But with playing all the safeties, my stuff is starting to work its way out. But still, my opponent has the advantage, right? Look, all 3 of his balls are accessible. My 2-ball is stuck. Right? That's the problem here. Now, y'all remember when I said in APA, you don't have to call your shots? Sometimes you can get lucky. Watch what's about to happen. I'm lining up for a 4-6 combination, and I am putting bottom right spin on this cue ball because I have to draw the cue ball back and I want to knock my 2-ball loose. Watch what happens. I don't even know if I should be ashamed of myself because of that. Because since I didn't call this ball, like I said, you don't have to call balls in APA. So if anybody wants, if you type in !APA in my chat, if anybody sees a suggestion, because like, let me know, everybody, what does APA stand for? Because we all know that it doesn't stand for American Pool Player Association. I've had one viewer told me that it means another pocket accident. We've got any pocket, any pocket, anytime. Type in !APA and let's see what my bot, my Stream Elements bot, is going to tell you what APA stands for. Another any pocket amateur, or there's a more colorful word that you can put instead of amateur. But stuff like this happens. So when this happened, I looked at the opposing team is laughing and smiling. My team is laughing and smiling. I'm of course laughing and smiling. And I look over at my opponent and I put my hand up as a gesture and I apologize because I can obviously appreciate when I get lucky, but I also make sure that I acknowledge that I get lucky. Because now, since that table is completely wide open, I have no issues, so I should be able to run the table from here. So you can see I play a little bit of draw on the 1-ball, get position for the 6. I'm going to play the 6 into the side pocket. This looks like I might be using a little bit of top left so I can pull the cue ball back. This is actually supposed to go into the side pocket here, so it went just a little too far, which is not really a big deal for me because all I'm going to do is just roll the ball in. My cue ball is going to roll down table, come back up for the 8 in the side. At least I think the 8's going to the side. The 8 might also go into the corner. It just depends on how far the cue ball rolls. Now the 8's going to go into the side. All right, so with a little bit of lady luck, I was able to steal that rack. But that was also after playing a lot of safeties in that rack, because if I would have stayed in aggressive mode, I could have put myself in a situation where I could have lost, because all of my balls are being tied up. And when I'm forced to do something that allows my opponent to come back to the table, that's when I run the risk of losing. Now, I'm still doing the same typical thing that I've done before, is that, when I'm playing a session where I do nothing but pop breaks or, dead on breaks, when I get to the hill, because I only need one more to win, I try to make the 8 ball on the break on my last rack here, because that means it's going to be a win. So I hit the ball that's in the second row, and as you can see, the 8 ball doesn't even move. Right? Now, why doesn't the 8 ball move? There could be gaps in the rack, right? We don't know. It's a hand rack, so we're not entirely sure. But typically, if you contact the ball that's in the second row, the way that I did, that 8 ball is going to move out of the rack. And since I'm breaking from the left side of the table, typically we would watch to see if the 8 ball falls over here. Typically. But I've had other matches where like the 8 ball just randomly falls into a pocket because it gets kicked all over the place. Now, I made a ball on the break, which I think was a solid, because let me look at the table. I don't see the 4 ball. So this particular shot here is actually in my thumbnail. Because again, what have I been doing this entire match so far when I'm not running out? I'm solving problems. I'm playing safeties, right? And since I'm solids on this one, look at this guy right here. Everything else is kind of okay, except for this guy as well. And is the 5 ball in trouble? Yeah, the 5 ball is not in trouble. The 5 ball freely goes into this pocket. All right, so we've got a couple of issues here. We got the 1-7 cluster here, and then we've got the 2 ball cluster here. When you practice this stuff enough, this is how far you're able to think in advance. Because look what I end up trying to do here. I'm planning on solving my 2 ball. And in order to do that, I start with this shot. One of my favorite shots. All right, cut cross banking the ball, because now look what position that I'm in. 3 balls gone. I'm in position to shoot the 6. I have an off angle to shoot the 6, which means I'm going to try to make the 6, make my cue ball hit this rail, come over here and break out the 2 ball, which is going to require some top left spin. If I didn't get this position, then there's no way I'm going to break out the 2 ball. But when I cross banked that 3 ball, I already knew that my cue ball was going up in the direction that it was going. So we could probably argue that maybe I got a little lucky that I landed in the perfect position to be able to do what I did here. I'm certainly open to that. But that was at least the intention. Can I do it 10 times out of 10? Probably not. But I definitely did it when I was trying to. All right, so now I have no choice but to deal with this issue here. So what you see me trying to do here is to play a billiard shot. So I'm going to try to hit the 1 ball, and I have to hit, after I hit the 1 ball, I need the cue ball to roll forward and contact the 7 ball in the correct contact spot in order to make the 7 ball here into the corner pocket. But this shot I fail at doing. Because the 1 ball is above the 7 ball, so I have to allow the cue ball to roll through the 1 ball and hopefully hit the 7 in the correct spot, and that doesn't happen. All right, so my opponent gets to come to the table. Now, my opponent has a fairly wide open table, so if we want, let's go ahead and talk about patterns. Right? I don't necessarily see an issue near Sharoni, if you're still here, this would be probably an opportune moment to say, well, what ball do I want to shoot at last that allows me to be able to pocket the 8-ball? Well, in order to do that, we have to determine that the 8-ball is most likely going to go into this pocket here, assuming that the 1 ball does not block it. So when you think about it, that probably means this ball or this ball is going to be the last ball that you would want to shoot at. When you think about building your patterns, I always like to say build your pattern backwards. If you build your pattern forward, that most likely means you're going to say, hey, I'm probably going to shoot this ball first into the corner pocket, provided, of course, that it passes by the 5 ball. And I'll just let my cue ball hit the rail, come back out, and most likely shoot this ball next. And you can do that. You can build a pattern going forward. But most of the time, you'll end up finding out that you might run into an issue. So what I suggest is building your pattern halfway backwards and then go forward. What the heck do I mean by that? Well, like I said, if we knew that the 8-ball was going to go here, what ball do we want to shoot at last that gets us positioned to shoot the 8-ball over there? It could be this ball, or this ball, because there would be very minimal cue ball movement. You can literally say, well, maybe I could shoot this ball last, but that means your cue ball has to hit this rail and come up like this. Right? It's certainly possible. If you want to minimize your cue ball movement, it's most likely going to be one of these 3. So you have to pick one. All right, so which one are we going to pick? Well, you know what? Let's pick. Think. Let's go ahead and pick this one. This is going to be the last ball that we're going to shoot at. So now I have to ask myself, what ball gets me positioned on this ball to go into the corner pocket? It's most likely going to be this one or this one. And so as you're doing this, you start noticing that you start building this path backwards to the point to where now that you've built it enough backwards, you can kind of build a path going forward in order to get there. And so let's just say, for argument's sakes, we're going to make this ball be the ball that we use to get to this ball. And you ask yourself, well, what ball gets you to that ball? Maybe this one. And so I've created a 4-ball pattern backwards. And so what the heck does that mean? Well, now we have 4 balls left that we can try to build forward. And we most likely know that we're going to start with this guy here. So what can we do? Well, I think it just depends. What I'm thinking about here is we can possibly shoot this ball in to this pocket. Like I said, provided, of course, that it passes by the 5. If I find out when I resume the video that the 5 ball blocks it, then everything's null and void. But let's just say it goes. I'm going to play position for the 9 ball here. And then most likely from the 9 ball, I would play position either for the 12, even though I said the 12 was one of the balls, or I would play position for this guy. If I stuck to my guns as to how I said the ending pattern was going to be, which was going to be these 4 balls right here were going to lead me to the 8 ball, then I would play from the 9 to get position on the 13. Because from the 13, I would then get position for the 15. And then look where I'm at. I can play the 12 here, the 10 here, this ball here, and then this ball here. And this ending pattern right here is where the cue ball movement is minimized. The unfortunate part is there's a little bit of cue ball movement at the very beginning. And I say that because you're not always going to be able to minimize your cue ball movement. You want to try to minimize it as much as you can, but you're not always going to keep it to an absolute minimum. So that's at least a pattern that I see, that I probably would have attempted. Let's see what my opponent sees. I'm guessing the 14 goes, since he's shooting at it, or he's attempting to shoot at it. And I actually like that. I actually like that he was able to get position on the 13 ball that way, because now I'm playing from the 13 to the 9 ball. But it looks like he might have played position for the 10 ball. Okay. Now he's dealing with the 15. Uh-oh. That's not the direction he wanted to go in. Right? Because if we take my opponent's pattern, which I think was still good, because now he's in a position to where if he would have played that last ball, which I think was the 15 ball, if he'd have got position on the 9, anywhere right here, He can roll the 9 in, get position for the 12 in the side, 11 in the side, 8 in the corner, and the cue ball movement is minimized. But like with anything else, when you come up with a plan, sometimes the plan can go wrong, and you just have to be able to go with it. Now, I specifically do remember what happens here, and I wish my opponent would have stuck with what he was going to do instead of doing this. Because sometimes you have to change your plan. He still wants the 11 ball to be the last ball, so therefore he's going to shoot the 9 ball, try to get position on the 11 so that way he can shoot the 8 ball here into the corner pocket. All right? It's obviously an option to do, but with that mistake there and knocking my 1 ball loose, he runs the risk of losing. So what should my opponent have done here? Right? He gets decent position on the 11 ball. I think he should have shot the 11 ball, in my opinion. What I would have attempted to do here was to shoot the 11 ball, stun the cue ball over to this rail, and back out towards the middle of the table, shoot the 9 into the corner pocket, and spin my cue ball 2, maybe 3 rails back over here to shoot the 8 into the corner pocket. That's probably what I would have done at this point in time, instead of trying to stick to the plan, which is leave the key ball, leave the perfect key ball alone to get position on the 8. Ideally, that would be great. But when you start running into situations like this, sometimes it's a good idea to change the plan. All right, because now the table is wide open, and this is the interesting part. Sometimes y'all, some people might ask, like, how often do I actually look at the table? And I say every time I come to the table. You got to remember, I'm off camera, right? And I'm looking, and I already saw what just happened. And by the time I walk to the table, I've already thought about everything that I'm going to do. I don't always have to come to the table, stand in front of the camera, and look around. Right? Because I've had that much practice. If you haven't practiced it enough, you might have to come to the table and stop and look and really figure out what you're going to do. And that's fine. I highly suggest that you do that, because with enough practice, you'll be able to do exactly what I did. I'm going to come to the table and I'm already chalking instantly. I already know what I'm going to do. Start with the 1 ball. Play the cue ball like this so I can come over here for position for the, I think this is the 7 ball. With a rolling cue ball, not going to do anything fancy. Oh, never mind. That was a little bit of right spin in order for the cue ball to do that. I hit it just a little too hard, but that's fine, because I do want some sort of an angle when I shoot this 5 ball, because I'm going to naturally hit this rail and start working my way up towards the 8 ball. How did I hit this, though? Top left. A little bit of top left spin. Kind of overrolled it a little bit. My cue ball is supposed to be right here, but you can see I'm calling this corner pocket here. I have to do a back cut shot. And then, of course, I have to make sure that I don't scratch as well. So I think a little bit of stun, because I think the tangent line takes me straight there. So a little bit of stun pulls me underneath the tangent line. I should be hitting the rail after the side pocket. Just like that. And I'm able to take the match 5-0 on this one. I think it was in 7 innings, or maybe it was 4. I wasn't entirely sure. Every inning ended after me. So yeah, I think at the very least, my opponent, I've played a couple of times. Sometimes my opponent ends up watching the live streams with us here. And with some of the matches that I've done with my opponent before, I saw during this match that he's been taking some of the advice that I've been giving him, which I think is good. But now, hopefully, you can see that sometimes, even though you came up with a plan, sometimes you're not able to stick to the plan. The plan has to change. I think that would be probably the biggest thing that I would have to give my opponent. My opponent could have taken this rack, and obviously there was that first rack that my opponent could have done. My opponent unfortunately missed the 8 ball. He had a good run out and just missed the 8 ball and left it for me. But if he would have just changed his plan a little bit right here, this would have been another rack for him to be able to take. And at the very least, I would hope that what I was talking about with solving problems on the table, at least for this match, makes sense for everybody. So that way, when you play your matches, you'll be able to see stuff like this, because stuff like what you saw here is going to happen to you. Guarantee it. Hopefully now you at least have some information on how to possibly deal with it. So let's go back to here as I set up for the next match. Let's do this. And I'm actually going to take a small break, and then I'll be right back to answer any questions anybody might have before I review the next match. So let me get the next match at least queued up, which is this one here. Okay. And then everybody give me just a moment. I'll be right back. All right, we're back, everybody. And oh my gosh. Somebody decided to come say hello. Everybody remember Zelda? Link is out and about right now, so he is not available, but I still at least have this big hunk floof that wants to come say hello to everybody. Okay, so this is a moment where, like I said, I can take a couple of questions before I start reviewing the next match. And then y'all can see me torture my cat, because look how thrilled he is to be on stream with everybody. He's not, he doesn't even care. Hi. Oh my goodness. Put you down. Okay, let's see. Gerard Russell, you're asking, is there ever any need to use extreme left or right spin? Because you put the word extreme in your question, yes. The answer is yes. The question is, how often, right? It's not very often. Not very often. But there are going to be moments where they would come up. So like, what would be an example? Well, imagine if you had an object ball that you needed to shoot that was at the foot end of the table on the foot rail at the center diamond, right? And let's say your cue ball is on the head string, we'll say a ball's width to the left or right of the center diamond. And you want to cut it to either of the corner pockets, right? When a shot like that comes up, you're definitely going to be putting some sort of side spin, and you're most likely going to put a lot of side spin. If your cue ball is to the left of the center diamond, you're going to put right spin, so you can try to spin cut. You can call it a kick shot if you want, because you're going to hit the rail first and then try to spin over to the object ball to cut it to the right corner pocket. Or if you're to the right of the object ball, you're going to put extreme left to try to spin cut kick the ball to the left corner pocket. Because if you're not going to do that, then your alternative is to try to bank the ball. Right? That would be the only other alternative. The thing about it is like, when you end up coming up with a question about like, how often would you do this? Or is there ever a need to do this? Or is there ever a need to do that? And the likelihood of the answer is going to be, there's probably at least one occasion. There's probably at least one occasion. Now, what I can say, though, is how often should you practice that one occasion? Right? I would think an occasion like that is probably something you don't have to heavily practice on. Because what you want to heavily practice on are shots that come up a lot. So that way you can get decent at, because if shots that come up a lot you're not decent at, those would be the ones that you want to focus on. I don't think you want to focus on really, really tough shots that don't come up as often as not really, really difficult shots. And I don't want to try to label like what's supposed to be easy and what's not what's supposed to be difficult, because that's going to vary based on like your skill level versus my skill level or any of your fellow pool players' skill level. But what would be relatively easy is any time that you're having to hit the object ball like with a half ball hit or thicker. Anything that's thinner than a half ball hit, you can probably start gauging that the shots are getting more and more difficult. So I hope that answers your question. Luke B, you want to know, am I accepting subscribers' games to play videos or gameplay videos for critiquing? I talked about that at the beginning of the stream. Right now, the answer is no, but I am seriously contemplating it on bringing it back. I just have to figure out what I'm going to do when the requests to review other people's matches or gameplay becomes so overwhelming that I end up having to pick and choose which ones I'm going to review. Because I would tend to think that anybody that sends me their video means they want it to get reviewed. So what reason am I going to be able to give someone to say, I decided not to review your video, when they're going to come back and say to me, well, why not? Because you reviewed everybody else's video. Like, I don't want to put myself in that type of situation. So I really have to figure out what am I going to do when that situation comes up. Eventually, we'll have to wait and see. This is not really a question, but I do want to say thanks, Pete. You're saying you watched some of my matches at the Westgate and I had some great shots. I'm going to review my 3 matches that I had in the 9-ball mini event that I had. So we're going to be able to see my gameplay there. Toxis 8-ball, you want to ask me if there's any noticeable difference between my Tuxedo SP2 that I have that I typically use in my garage and my Predator Blak 4.5 that I shoot with outside? No, I don't really see the difference. Both of them have 12.9 millimeter shafts. The only difference is that the Tuxedo still has the factory Victory soft tip on it. My Predator Blak 4.5 has a House soft tip on it. Other than that, they feel identical. Now, my Predator Icon 4.5 that I bought from Darren Appleton has a 12.5 millimeter shaft on it, and it has a Taom Fusion tip. The Taom Fusion tip is a little bit harder than the Victory soft and the House soft tip. So it definitely feels different. And you can hear how different it sounds as well. I've played straight pull with it. I've done a couple of videos with it as well. There is a distinct difference in the way the cue sounds and the way the cue feels with that particular tip. I do have plans to eventually change the Victory soft tip that's on my Tuxedo to the Taom soft tip, since I am sponsored by Taom, so that way I can do a comparison between the Taom Fusion and the Taom soft tip. And what I can say is this: I have no issues with the Taom Fusion. It's just not my preference. It is a little bit harder than I would prefer to play with. I'm not particularly fond of the sound that the Taom Fusion makes when I contact the cue ball. every time I get done playing with the Town Fusion, when I go and pick up my Blak, or when I pick up the Tuxedo, the sound and the feel of the hit is just more appealing to me with a softer tip. So that's why I want to at least try the Town soft tip, compare the two, since I'll be comparing two of the products from the same company, and then let you know what I think. And based on me liking the Victory Soft and the How Soft over, or I should say I prefer them over the Town Fusion, I would anticipate that I'm going to prefer the Town Soft over the Town Fusion as well. Toxis, you're also asking, have I seen the pool card game Hill Hill? You just got it. Looks like it's a fun way of playing with friends or different drills. Probably more lower skill level based on but a great concept. I have seen it. I think I've seen a couple of posts on Reddit about it, and I think I at least saw one video on it so far. I don't know much about it, but if it's just another game, I'm fully in support of, you know, games that are that allow pool to be quote unquote fun. But if it's a game that is not 8-ball, not 9-ball, not 10-ball, not straight pool, not even one pot, if it's a game that isn't really done in competition, well, you know, I don't know, because that's typically what I tend to lean towards is doing something that focuses on helping you improve at the games that are actually out there and competing. So I would think that this particular game, though, may be fun to play at home, I just don't know what it would be like to play in public. And I may have a different opinion when I finally learn more about the game. I'm just talking about just my assumptions that I have of it right now. Since it is a card game that you play on a pool table, you know, how is it actually going to be helpful? I don't really know until I know more about it. Yeah, so if it's just to play with friends overall, it's something to make the game fun, I'm obviously all for that. You're going to be playing on a pool table, so you're still going to be shooting shots, you know, doing something that you normally do in a game of pool. So it has some sort of aspect at helping you improve your game, but in a fun way. And hey, I'm definitely all for that. Okay. Let's see. I don't really see any other questions. So let's go ahead and roll on to the next match. Here we go. Now, in this matchup here, I'm playing up against another skill level 6. So this is going to be a race to 5-4. And when I glanced over it, I saw the same thing as I saw in the first match, where it looks like I was trying to solve a lot of issues that were on the table before I attempt to attack the table. And so, yeah, let's break apart this and see what else we can find. Now, I at least lagged a little bit better. Did I lose the lag, though? I did lose the lag. Let's do this, actually. I didn't do this on the last game. We'll put a little star next to my opponent's name to know that he broke first. So I at least got more than halfway back after the foot rail, because my first lag on the first match was terrible. Okay, so just like my opponent, we're doing a center table break. And you see that right there? That's what I don't want my pop break to do, right? That is a clear indication of not hitting the rack square. The cue ball pops into the air and then just starts rolling its way over to one side. That is the number one thing that I always try to avoid whenever I'm doing the pop break. And the moment I see stuff like that, that instantly tells me I'm not lining up straight with the head ball. Now, my opponent broke. Did he make any balls on the break? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't see what's underneath me. There's the 5. Looks like the 6 ball is gone. Here's the 7. There's the 8. 9. I think that's the 10. This is the 13. Looks like the 9 and the 11 might be gone. Not entirely sure. So this is an open table. This is an open table after a scratch. So I have to keep the cue ball behind the head string, and I have to shoot at a ball that is past the head string. So I can't shoot at any of these 4 balls that are right here. Or let me rephrase that. I can't directly shoot at them. I mean, if I'm feeling froggy, I can try to kick into the rail and try to, kick the 3 ball in. But why in the world would I want to do something like that? Now, I know this is going to be a slow start for me because I do distinctly remember this moment here. It's not very often that I do this, but I am attempting to shoot this 9 ball first because it's going to open the pocket for this 12 ball here to go into the corner pocket as well. And if I remember correctly, I'm trying to use a little bit of bottom right so that way I can hopefully accomplish this. Make the ball, hit this rail, come over here, and kind of move these. Now, let me go ahead and show everybody what happens. All right, so I was successful at objective 2. I was unsuccessful at the most important objective, which is to make the darn ball. So what I want to talk about, at least on that, besides everybody making fun of me that I missed ball in hand, is this. The priority of a shot is to always make the shot, unless of course you're playing a safety. All right, so depending upon where you're at in your game, where you are on the skill level ladder, what is always going to be important is making the ball. So I could have just made the ball, right? I could have just used a rolling cue ball, hit it a lot softer, and just rolled the cue ball in, or rolled the cue ball would have hit the 9, the cue ball would have hit the rail and probably rolled its way somewhere up here. I could have done that, right? And everybody else could do that as well. But depending upon where you are on the skill level, you have to consider that when you miss shots like that, ball in hand shots, you have to take into consideration what complexity are you adding to your shot. Because any amount of complexity will start to increase the possibility of you missing the shot. So think about what I was trying to do here. I'm trying to shoot that 9 ball in. Go back to this. I'm trying to shoot that 9 ball in that is frozen to a rail with bottom outside spin. And typically, when you shoot at frozen balls that are frozen to the rail, you would want to use the spin in the direction that the ball's going. So I would most likely want to shoot this with left spin instead, so that way I can catch the rail first and still possibly cut it in. Not only am I trying to shoot this with bottom right spin, but I also have the second objective of trying to be able to move the cluster as well. What would be my 13 and 15 had I made the 9. When you factor all that in, that's what gives me the possibility or increases the possibility of me missing a shot. If I were to simplify the shot and just focus on making the shot, then the probability of me missing the shot decreases while the probability of me making the shot increases. So a lot of times, if you're a skill level 2, skill level 3, skill level 4, I would definitely prioritize making the shot. Do not really try to complex the shot in any sort of way. And controlling the cue ball is certainly a complexity that can cause you to miss, just like it did me. As you get higher and higher up on the skill level ladder, complexing the shot still increases the chances of you missing, but the better you are, it just doesn't increase it as much. So always take that into consideration whenever you find yourself playing and you miss the shot. And you say to yourself, man, this was an easy shot. Yeah, it might have been an easy shot. But what were you trying to do to make it harder because you're trying to play position? Because even playing position means that's a complexity that you're adding to the shot. Playing position for the next shot. How often does everybody think about the next shot and you miss and you realize and you say to yourself, I was too worried about the position of the next shot that I ended up missing the current shot? That's pretty much what I'm talking about. All right. So now my opponent's back at the table, doing a decent job running the table. I have an issue with what he did there. We'll talk about it after he's done. I have a feeling he wanted the cue ball to actually stop here, which is so he can shoot he can still shoot the fly ball, but I think he wanted to shoot the fly ball from this angle and not from the angle that he has here. What happened? Looks like my opponent was about to shoot, and now I don't know what's happening. Okay, whoops, unfortunate scratch. So because it looked like he was trying to come around this way, maybe for the one ball. So let's go back to this particular shot right here, because here's where I had the issue. Because we can see here, like right there, I can see there that my opponent has like some form of top left on the cue ball. So that way the cue ball does exactly what it did over here, except I do think he wanted the cue ball to stop right here instead of it stopping right here. I personally would have attempted to get position for the 4 ball to go into this pocket here. So I probably would have used a little bit of maybe stun right. And the objective would be to make the 2 ball bump into the 12, get and move it over here, so that way my cue ball is somewhere right around here to shoot the 4. Because after I shoot the 4, I can get position on the 5 that we know that's right here. From the 5, transition to the 1, and this ball is out of the way. The 1 goes here, and the 8 goes here. That's the biggest difference that I think I would have tried on this particular layout here. So I've got ball in hand. And typically when I have ball in hand, I try to start with the ball that I think is the hardest to play position on. Because really, I don't think there's any issues on the table here for me. So I'm not sure if the 8 ball passes by the 4 ball to go into the corner pocket. So it looks like I'm going to start with the 12 ball, most likely with some top spin to just roll forward for maybe position on the 9 or the 14. And this is usually why I keep forgetting about having so many moving parts, because the 3 ball is gone, the 2 ball is gone, and it looks like the 7 ball is gone. And what did I just shoot? I got the 9. Looks like the 10 ball might be here. I'm actually not sure. So it looks like I'm going for the 9 next. Just gently roll into that. I'm not sure if that was the greatest idea in the world. Have to pull out a left-handed shot. This is probably being done with some top right. And I didn't hit it hard enough. I would imagine that I wanted my cue ball to be somewhere over here. I mean, if I would have landed in the window, that would have been ideal to get position for the 13 ball. What am I trying to do here? Oh, I guess I didn't see enough of the 13 ball to be able to shoot it into this pocket, so I tried to back cut it all the way down here. How close was I? Maybe about a half. I missed it by a half diamond. Now, a little fortunate on the leave here, since I managed to put the cue ball all the way down at the other end of the table, pretty close to the rail, which cuts off access to the cue ball. So a little fortunate with that. My opponent does have a shot at the 1 ball, but since he has to use topspin on the cue ball is going to be rolling forward. So what is he going to try to do here? Tries to just gently roll it in. Actually does a really good job at that, so he should have position on the 4. Question is he too far forward to where the 8 is in the way? Yeah, he overcuts the ball. So I would be curious. I'd be curious to know if from here the 8-ball is actually in his way. So where if he tries to do a thicker hit, since he overcut the ball, would he have contacted the 8-ball? So I'd only be curious if the cue ball was right here instead, could he have made the 4-ball? Does that sound familiar? Remember when he shot a ball that was right here and he flared his cue ball 3 rails, and I would have suggested that he try to do this instead? That's why. So he overcuts this ball. This leaves me a not so difficult layout here to run out, starting with the 13 ball, probably just rolling for the 14 into the side pocket like so. I think I rolled just a little too far because now my cue ball is going to be tracking up this way. It'd have been ideal if my cue ball was right here so I can roll through and get position for the 15 to go into this corner pocket. Since I'm on the other side of the shot line, my cue ball goes up towards the 15. So what am I doing? That looks like a stun shot. Am I going to try to run into it? I did try to run into it. That was probably a bad idea. considering the result. That was probably a terrible idea. And if I'm doing this, that means the 15 ball does go. I like this. I would hope by now I'm not nervous playing in front of a camera. That was such a pretty shot. I only wish I'd have hit it just a little bit softer, right? Just a little bit softer, because it just would have been ideal if my cue ball stopped somewhere right around here. Oh, and you can see here, look, I'm actually marked in the pocket, right? This is my wallet that I have. So it looks like I'm gonna have to try to bank the 8-ball. And I overbanked it. Now, I would rather overbank this particular shot, because how many times has this happened to y'all? We go back to here. How many times have y'all tried to bank the 8 and you end up banking it short? And what happens when you bank it short? It goes over here into this pocket. How many times has that happened to y'all? Because I know it's happened to me and I know it's happened to y'all. So admit it. It has happened. All right. So in situations like this, I would certainly, I would rather make the darn ball. But if I am going to miss, I would rather overbank the ball, because then I don't have to worry about it falling into the wrong pocket. Now, I did try to protect the cue ball at the same time, but I didn't do a very good job. I wanted the cue ball to draw back to where my opponent would have to bank his 4-ball instead of cutting his 4-ball in. So he's able to cut it in. Luke, the reason why you didn't see me measure is because I measure with my eyes. When I'm able to visualize all of the lines, that's typically what I'll do. Sometimes when I'm not able to see enough of it, that's when you'll actually see me put the stick down onto the table. You actually see me talk about that even in the video that you're referencing, about how sometimes I don't put my sticks on the table when I do actual measuring, because I will visualize everything that I need with my eyes because I've practiced the system so much. All right, here we go. My opponent is on the 8-ball. Sometimes I just don't know what to say. What did we see on my first match? My first match that I reviewed in the first rack. All right, my opponent got to the 8 and just dogged to the 8-ball and left it in the pocket. And unfortunately, this opponent does the same thing. Right? Because don't get me wrong. When I play these matches, I obviously want to win. But at the same time, I want to know that my opponent is playing well at the same time. All right, so I would be rooting for my opponent to make that ball just as much as I'd be rooting for my opponent to miss the ball. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. I know it kind of contradicts, that last statement kind of contradicts itself, but like I'm thinking to myself, like I lost that rack, right? I'm not supposed to win the rack. As much as I would hope that my opponent would miss, I would think that my opponent isn't going to miss, right? So I would want my opponent to make the shot, and we would go ahead, and I'd be down 1-0 just as much as I'd want him to be able to miss the shot, and I would be up 1-0 because I want my opponents to be able to play well on top of me playing well, because everybody suffers from this, right? If you start to get emotional when you play, your gameplay just goes completely downhill. And how many of y'all have missed an 8-ball like that, and you're just like, ugh, and the rest of your match just is nothing after that. And I don't want my opponents to have to experience that, because now they're mentally defeated. If my opponent gets mentally defeated, I want them to be mentally defeated because I mentally defeated them, not because they mentally defeated themselves. I hope that makes sense. Now we can see here, I had a decent pop break on this one. What did I make? I don't see the 2-ball. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't see the 5-ball. And then 6, 7, 8. And then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I'm solids. All right, so since I'm solids, look right here. Issue. And I'm going to try to solve it as quickly as I can. That's why I'm starting with the 3-ball. All right, play the 3 in the side. And what did I say before? What did I say before about complexing your shot? And if you complex your shot, you increase the probability of missing. Well, you're about to see something like that again. Because, actually, let's just watch. Look at the 8-ball. Oh, I almost lost the game. Why did I hit this so hard? Look at that. Like, why hit a shot that hard? Well, in my opinion, and this was all on purpose, I certainly didn't expect to miss the 6-ball. I certainly didn't expect the 8-ball to come into play. But hitting this shot as hard as I did was absolutely necessary as far as I'm concerned. Why? Because look, both of my solids are surrounded by stripes, and I'm trying to get them out. I can clearly do this. I can hit the 6-ball softer, come over here, bump into the 4, which will bump the 1 out of the way, and the 4-ball is going to be is still going to be stuck in the cluster. So I certainly could have done that, and that would have made my shot a little bit easier, and I probably would have been able to execute it just fine. But in this case here, I'm trying to get both of them out, and that's why I hit it as hard as I did. So between hitting as hard as I did, putting the top right spin, in this particular moment, it was enough complexity to cause me to miss the shot. If I were to set this shot back up in my garage and try it again, could I make it? Yeah, of course, possibly. But at this given moment, at this given time, I missed. And then, of course, I almost lost the game as well. Okay, let's see here. What is my opponent going to do? Because now my opponent has issues to deal with as well. I still kind of at least opened everything up for myself, which is good. All right, so we got that. That looks good there. What's my opponent going to do here? Decides to go for the 9-ball. Looks like he undercut the 9-ball. Okay, so the 6-ball obviously goes, and then the 4-ball, maybe kind of an issue. And I think the 1-ball might be okay to go here into the side pocket. It might go into the corner pocket after I move the 6. So it should be pretty clear that I'm probably going to start with the 7-ball here. Where am I transitioning to, though? That was a little bit of stun right as I come up towards the middle of the table, and you can see me slap the table, which means the cue ball is rolling too far. I'm more than likely trying to get position on the 6, and I don't have it. So I think it was Luke B. Again, you're seeing me not measure anything, and whether I measure or whether I visualize everything with my eyes, that's not going to guarantee anything. But what'll end up happening though is when I do this enough, I missed another bank shot, right? When I start doing that enough, then I'm going to end up resorting to measuring everything out, right? Because when I basically, after I try to do a system by just visualizing it and I'm not successful at it enough in a row or, you know, over the course of the long haul, then eventually, yeah, I start backtracking and going through all the steps again. All right, so my opponent makes that stripe, comes all the way back down here to grab his 15 ball. Whoops. Don't think he was expecting that. And that puts me in a position where I can attack the table, I think. Okay, so since I have ball in hand, let's talk about it. What would everybody do here? Let me see some suggestions. What would everybody do here? I have the 1 ball here next to the 14. I have the 4 ball here, and I have the 6 ball here, and I have ball in hand. What order is everybody trying to run this in? And I would think it's pretty obvious that the 8 ball is probably going to go over here, right? I don't think I'm going to definitely leave myself in a position where I have to bank it. Okay, so Paradox Profit, you're saying 4-6-1, and that is if the 1 ball goes into the side pocket. So you're thinking something like this. You want to shoot the 4 ball, maybe do a stop shot. Shoot the 6 ball, maybe do another stop shot, and shoot the 1 ball here. I like that. I don't particularly have an issue with that. Luke B says the same thing. And then Paradox, you offer another suggestion with the 1-4-6. Let me go back and show Luke B says the same thing, 4-6-1. Terry Chert, I hope I said that correctly, 4-6-1 as well. Everybody likes the 4-6-1. And then I got another suggestion from Juan Rendon for the 1-4-6. Again, no right or wrong answer as far as I'm concerned. So I end up shooting the 1 ball. So I go 1, 4, and then 6. Oh, I apologize. It's pronounced Kurt. Thank you. And so you can see here with the way that I have to shoot the 6 ball, I end up putting top left so that way I can go around the 8 ball. That's the only reason why I did what I did there. Could I have done 4-6-1? I'm sure that option was available. I just didn't see it at the time. And then there we go. I'm able to take the rack. Or if I did see it, I chose not to do it. Okay, there was a decent pop break, but the cue ball just kept drawing its way back. And did I make a ball? I guess I did, since I'm staying at the table. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3. I don't see the 4 ball. 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'm solids. So when we're solids, yeah, you saw that right there. Like I said, I always just rinse and repeat the same exact things, right? Find problems, figure out ways to solve them, like I do right now, to solve the 1 ball. I'm sorry, not the 1 ball, to solve the 7 ball. I was shooting at the 1 ball, but I solved the 7 ball. So now to solve problem number 2, which is this 2-6 cluster. So, and I'm in a position to do it right now. Now, by doing that, that didn't mean that I was trying to break it apart. I'm actually looking at, playing either of these into the pockets because they do go. I think the bet here was more on the 6 ball than anything else, because watch the 6 ball. See, I just didn't hit it hard enough. And the reason why I didn't hit it hard enough is because I knew about this guy right here. I didn't want him tying up next to the 9 ball and the 14 ball. So if I would have made the 6, I would hopefully still have a shot at the 2. But had I hit the 6 ball harder, I wouldn't have a shot at the 2, is the thing. So I think my opponent overcut their 13 ball. You can see it looks like I have some left spin on this ball here. Am I going to go over for that 2? It's either that or the 7. And if I do this, that means the cue ball didn't do what I wanted it to do. Or maybe I'm just a little too close, because it looks like I'm probably going to play position for the 5. And that means I have to use the 2 last in order to get position on the 8. Okay, there's that there. So from here, what does everybody try to do? Or matter of fact, even if you want to talk about the 5 ball, where are we trying to land on the 2 ball? And then where are we trying to play the 8 ball from the 2 as well? Because I would hope to think that since everybody saw that I landed here, that I'm most likely going to try to draw the cue ball back in order to play position for the 8 into the side pocket. Because if I was at any sort of angle, like for whatever reason, if my cue ball landed here, then I would more than likely have to flare the cue ball 3 rails around like this in order to be able to play the 8 ball into the side pocket as well. All right, Toxis 8 ball, you got it right. Straight draw back. Why are the pool balls in front of the alert? Let's do this. Let's move this down. There we go. That's what I want. So yeah, with straight draw, I pull the cue ball, make sure I don't get hooked behind the 9 and the 14, and then have a shot at the 8 ball. No pop on that one, but a pretty good square hit since the cue ball comes straight back. Looks like I made the 7 ball on the break, so there's at least that. Okay. And this is usually why I struggle with sometimes whether or not if I want to review my own match, because a lot of times it's a rinse and repeat of topics and tips and stuff that I talked about in previous live streams. Look for the trouble spots, try to figure out how to solve those trouble spots, know when you're going to be able to run out, know when you're going to play safe. And a lot of times I try to see if some of my matches actually has something completely new that I've never talked about or that we've never seen before. Because from here, all I'm trying to do now is just control my cue ball, right? Get my cue ball in the positions that I need in order to be able to run the table, right? We can see here, the 2 ball is probably going to be the hardest ball. So when I shoot this 6, do I run into this ball here to have a shot at the 2? Right? Because that's what I tried, but look what happens, right? I wanted to bump into this ball so that way I have position on the 2 ball so I can shoot the 2, try to come out into the open and maybe have some sort of position on the 5 or the 3. But I at least have a shot at my 3-ball to go down here into the corner pocket. And I wind up undercutting the ball. Sounds like somebody's home. Maybe I think I hear the dog. Maybe I'll go get the dog after this match is over before I end the stream. Okay, so my opponent's here at the table. And I love it. Anytime my opponents play safe on me, I absolutely love it. Because whether it doesn't matter what skill level you're at. I've seen this over and over again. And I don't typically see it towards the, like when 2 7s play against each other. How many times have y'all watched players or have done this to yourself? When you see how good your opponent is playing, you want to play with them shot for shot. Like you see them doing 4-ball runs, you want to do a 4-ball run. Or you see them do 5-ball runs and you want to do a 5-ball run. Not realizing that the layout of the table is more difficult that allows you to do that. And you don't even consider doing something like this because you're saying to yourself, my opponent's not playing safe. Why am I going to play safe? I think that's very, very common that ends up happening. And I'm certainly going to stress this concept right here. This is how you should be playing. Just like you saw me in my first match, where I played a lot of safeties in order to be able to take one of the racks that I certainly could have lost. But right around here, my opponent is saying, you know what? He's saying the same thing I say to myself. I can't run the table from here, so I'm not going to bother making the table easier for me to run out. Let me leave some soldiers on the table. Let me try to hide the cue ball. Make Chris do something super difficult. Hopefully get ball in hand. Then maybe I can attack the table. And I couldn't agree with this more, Craig. Always been told, rule number 1 is you don't always need to make a ball. That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. So when my opponent played this safety here, I was like, yes, I absolutely love it when stuff like this happens. At the same time, of course, I hate it because if I foul, I might lose the rack. But from an educational standpoint, like this is perfect to see stuff like this. All right, so what do I do from here? My opponent hit the ball pretty darn good. So what you see me try to do here, and this is kind of an absolute guess. I actually do like this suggestion. I don't know if it was actually possible though, like because you're thinking of something like this. I don't know. I can't remember if this stripe is in the way or not, and let alone I think the perfect spot in order to be able to hit the ball, let alone make the ball, I think is right here, right in front of the side pocket, which I obviously don't want to do. Could I have attempted to maybe use some side spin and be able to do it? Well, I'm so close to the rail, then I can't really I don't want to dig down into the cue ball and try to put some sort of draw plus side spin because then that ends up becoming a mass A shot and very, very difficult to control. So I ended up trying to do something like this. The only problem is that this is obviously a big obstacle, right? So what do I try to do? Well, I am trying to do this, where this would be the natural angle that the ball is supposed to happen. But what I have on the cue ball is this, because I want to see if I can break the angle so badly that it'll come down like this. That's at least what I was trying. But I miserably failed. So what my opponent wanted happened. They have ball in hand. So what can they do with it? Let's find out. I accidentally created a cluster, right? Which is to my favor. Oh, that's true. I didn't even consider that paradox. Could have also have the backup of hitting the long rail, hit the 2 ball, and then possibly make the 3. Like if I would have glanced off the 2, the cue ball would have came over here. That's pretty much what you're talking about. That's certainly a possibility. What did my opponent do there? He didn't like what he did. Oh, he's trying to break out his 13 ball. So that is awesome. My opponent is thinking far enough ahead to try to figure out what the heck am I going to do here. My only concern is I don't prefer the way that he tried it. I think there's a much simpler way to do it. What could we have done here? Why not do this? Now, the thing is that going to create a cluster? That's a possibility, right? If we shoot the 15 ball into the side pocket with some topspin, roll forward, bump into the 8 ball. I don't think it does. Like, look, here's the point of the pocket. So I do think that the 8 ball is far enough in front of the pocket to where we don't have to worry about it scratching. Maybe that's why he didn't do it. Maybe that's why he wants to shoot at this from behind. I want to see if there's just another one that I would have done. I think this goes both ways, right? If my opponent was successful in hitting this, what happens? The 8 ball goes into this area here, right? So I think clusters are being made no matter what. So is there just a better way of doing it? I don't know. I'm still pretty convinced of my option here. One, because I would not be blasting at this ball. Like, I would know to hit this in such a way to where I don't have to worry about making the 8 ball. Like, I just want to bump into it, right? If I bump into it and the 13 ball just dribbles out like this, maybe the 13 ball can go past the 8 into the side pocket. Like, that's what I would be thinking. And if I'm successful at doing that, well, I have the 14 ball to go here, and I have the 10 ball to go here as backup shots. That's pretty much what I would be thinking. But nonetheless, my opponent was able to make their 12. You can do it again right here with some bottom left spin. Make the 10 ball. Ooh, and see, even this. What about this, folks? When you got ball in hand? All right, this is not a bad option either. So that way the 15 goes here. And since you're carrying off the 8 ball should go like this and go this way. So that at least gives you the opportunity to allow these 2 balls to collide and at least hopefully stay separated. That's not a bad idea either. And if that still looks too risky, well then heck, do it with the 11 ball, right? As long as you know that when you're hitting the 8 ball is going to be tracking away from the side pocket, and you don't really have to worry about making it early and missing. Right? You can do it with the 15 or the 11 ball. I think that's an excellent option, Paradox. But let's see if he's going to be able to break it apart using the 10 ball. I'd like that he's trying to break it apart. This is something that he should be trying to do, especially if he's trying to win from here. Oh, with the bridge, this makes this so much more difficult. And see what I mean? He's not able to get the draw or the outside spin enough to be able to break it out. So now at this point here, my opponent should be almost surrendering and stop trying to make balls. Unless that 13 ball does squeeze past the 8 and go into the side. I don't think it does. So he's looking at it. Don't think it does, though. What does everybody do here? Paradox says soft hit on the 13. Look at this. Look at this. My opponent is in aggressive mode. He's like, I'm going to run out from here. I don't know if that's what he was thinking or not, but I mean, clearly he's thinking of still trying to run out since he tried to cut the 14 ball and he massively overcuts the 14 ball into the corner pocket. But what does everybody think of this? I hardly ever see people do this. At least in my area. So we got a lot of people that are saying that maybe you should have played safe by just hitting the 13 ball into the rail and then tucking the cue ball back behind here. That's fine. I think that's fine. What does everybody think of this? or heck, I mean, you know, control the cue ball to go somewhere over here, or just whatever. Leave the cue ball down here. Right? And let's just at least say that I'm not his opponent, right? Because I'm trying to speak from an aspect that everybody can benefit from, right? So if you're a skill level 4, skill level 3 or below or whatever, what does everybody think of this? Taking your 14 ball, pocketing the 3 ball. I mean, you might get lucky and it falls, right? If you get lucky and it falls, and your cue ball and your cue ball rolls forward and lands anywhere right here, you try to cut the 11 and you just keep on going, right? Those are certain definitely options. But at the very least, if I'm left somewhere right around here, what are the odds that I'm going to be able to make my 5 ball and get position on my 2 ball? That's why I would suggest something like this. And then let alone if the opponent is not me, what is the likelihood of making the 5 ball and getting position on the 2 ball? In my opinion, it is really difficult, which makes this, I think, a good play to do. Occupy this pocket by playing this ball here and then trying to get your cue ball to come down here. Yes, my opponent is giving me a shot. Yes. So if I make that 5 ball and then get position on the 2 ball and then somehow get position on the 8 ball, well, heck, I think I've earned that victory because I got out of a very, very difficult situation. But sometimes I don't really see people think of things like that. Right? And again, playing the 13 ball safety, I think, is a really good option as well. I'm certainly not going to take that away. But when you aggressively go for stuff like this, look what ends up happening. I have a shot, and I also have a shot on the hardest ball on the table. And I'm able to control the cue ball, right? So if I'm able to control this good enough, I might be able to steal the rack. I think this one here is with bottom left. Yep. Clearly, I wanted the cue ball to be like somewhere right around here, somewhere closer. I think here, this is just a stun shot. Watch this. All right, if I'd have stunned it any harder, what would have happened? I would have scratched, but by stunning it, look what happens. I get a nice shot at the 8 ball to go into the side pocket. And that's what allows me to take that rack. All right, so lots of different decisions that can come up here. I would probably end up thinking that the tapping the 13 ball and trying to leave the cue ball behind the 8 ball was probably the most powerful decision that he could have made. But then I at least want to show the aspect of what it would be like if you make your opponent's ball, right? Because I don't think that safety play comes up enough, or people don't consider that safety play enough. Okay, 8 ball break. Let's see what happens. Never mind. I'm glad I don't make the 8 ball on the break. Because if I make the 8 ball on the break and scratch, I lose. But the 8 ball did at least move. All right, so open table, cue ball behind the head string. Let's see what happens. Got a nice cluster that's right over here. As soon as my opponent gets out of the way of the camera. This right here. And so as far as degree of difficulty for solids and stripes, I think they're equal because of this here. Right? You have these 2 stripes that you might be able to break this up, but the 3 nullifies that. Right? So, wait, what? I'm pretty sure I told my opponent that he needs to put the cue ball behind the head string. Yeah, okay, I did. I couldn't tell whether or not, because how many of y'all have done that? How many of y'all have taken ball in hand after the break, from a scratch on the break, and forget that you're supposed to put it behind the head string? Right, because clearly that changes everything. He wanted to shoot the 2 ball into the side pocket, and now he can't. I mean, he could. It would just be a more difficult cut shot. But he likes solids. Looks like he's going to start with the 6-ball. Whoops. Overcuts the 6-ball. And I would agree with you, Paradox, that solids has a slight advantage because the 3-ball blocking these 2 stripes. But then, like, I think the 4-ball, you know, backtracks it. That's why I was saying that I think the complexity for both solids and stripes right now is rather equal. Oh, Luke B, you're asking me if I'm a 6 or a 7. I am a 7. My opponent here is a 6. That's why the race is 5-4. My 5 to their 4. It says you're curious to see how skill levels compare to handicap and BCA. BCA goes by Fargo, when it comes to APA to BCA, when you get to the top end of the ladder, meaning like I'm a 7. There's a complete difference between a 7 that is a 600 Fargo, like myself, because last I looked, I'm a 628. And then there's also a 7 that's like maybe a 575. Or there's a 7 that's a 700. Right? So once you get to the upper echelon of the skill ladder, the comparison between APA and Fargo becomes a widespread. Underneath that, like 5 and below, it's pretty. I think it's pretty comparable. Like you would sit there and think like some 6s could range anywhere between the low 500s to the mid 500s, and then when you get up to the 6s and 7s, then you start crossing over into the 551 pluses, etc., etc. But once you hit 7 and a 9-ball, the highest skill level is a 9. There's a complete difference between a skill level 9 that's a 628 like myself and a skill level 9 that's like a 720, because those exist. There are 700 Fargo rated players in the APA that would be rated as a 9 in 9-ball. Okay, I did a bunch of blabbing and I don't even know what happened there, but it looks like I'm solids. I just shot the 5-ball. So what the heck am I going to do with this 4-ball? All right, that's what I got to figure out. Yeah, see, Paradox said it perfectly. The person that won the 9-ball singles, that would be a 9 in APA, they have a Fargo rate of a 746. So if I were to play up against that player, they would probably wipe the floor with me. Oh, what the heck was that? What am I trying to do here? What am I trying to do? I'm obviously trying to shoot the 2-ball. Looking at my cue, it looks like I have top right spin. What the heck am I trying to do? Am I trying to... No. Am I trying to do something like this? Did I think I was going to be able to make this ball push through the tangent line and have the spin do something like this? Maybe break out my 4-ball? Why else would I hit the cue ball that hard? but let alone, right? Forget the fact that I messed up. Like, what are the odds of me doing this? Like, I missed this so badly that I billiard into this ball, and then my force follow goes right into the corner. Excuse me, goes right into the corner pocket. I certainly didn't see that coming. Here's the 6. Looks like the 7-ball is gone as well. And then I don't see the 9-ball. That's the 10-ball, 11. It's like the 12 is gone as well. All right. So now my opponent does have ball in hand everywhere. And I'm actually surprised that he's not attempting to deal with this ball. He wants to shoot the 11-ball. Okay, fine. Let's see what he does after that, and then I can offer a quick suggestion. Definitely hit that with some top left spin. probably was trying to get position for this guy right here, but now he has to settle for position here with the 9-ball. Definitely probably wanted to get position for this guy that here, so that way maybe he can try to break this apart. Spinning the cue ball around. Now is forced to do something with this ball here, and after, I'm pretty sure this is what he's going to shoot at. After this, then we're going to go back to when he had ball in hand. Oh, what a shot! And then whoops. Okay, so that was a great bank shot. Let's go back to here where my opponent had ball in hand. I actually like Terry's suggestion here. Right, start with the 9-ball to break up the cluster. I think that is an excellent choice. We're not entirely sure whether or not if this 15-ball can squeeze in between the 3 and the 2 in order to go into the corner pocket. But this is what we are certain of. If we take Terry's suggestion, place the cue ball right around here, so we can shoot the. We have to cut it. We don't want a straight in shot. We have to cut the ball so that way we can stun into this. And we're not entirely sure how they're going to break apart, right? But at the very least, what we can hope for is that this is our backup shot. And what does this ball lead us to? It leads us to this ball. So prior to Terry's suggestion coming in, I would have suggested starting with the 13 ball because the 13 ball leads to the 11. But this is the main reason why I like involving my viewers here, because I get to see other suggestions that I just don't see right away. So I think this is great. You try to play the 9-ball into the side pocket, break up your cluster. I mean, heck, maybe you'll shoot the 15 ball as a backup as well, depending upon how this actually spreads apart. But I certainly wouldn't have taken ball in hand and it just started with this ball when there's a harder ball that you could have started with that leads you to the ball that you wanted to play as well. But then you still also have to consider your trouble spot as well. So I hope that makes sense. Hey, heck, maybe instead of playing position for the 15, maybe he was trying to play position for the 9 so he can do the breakout. Not entirely sure. Now, when he got here, I don't know what was being asked for here, but I'm pretty sure now that this is going to be another safety battle moment here. Right, because what am I going to do with my 3-ball? I can obviously shoot my 6-ball. Maybe try to get position on my 4 and try to break out my 3 at the same time. It's pretty darn risky if you ask me. Let's see here. I don't think I'm going to scratch. Oh, never mind. I tried to bank it, so maybe I was worried about the scratch. Luke, I do this all the time. I play straight pool on my table. And I did have a show where I was doing something I called Saturday Night Drills, where I was doing drills on my table as well. I just haven't had time. I mean, the last time I live streamed on my table was literally a month ago. But I do live streams on my table when I have the opportunity. If you at least go through my YouTube channel, you'll find the live streams that I'm talking about, where I either played straight pool or I was doing like some form of drills or something. Plus a lot of other live streams that I've done in the past. All right, so my opponent did make a ball. Looks like we're stuck with the 10 and the 14 left. Is he attacking? Oh yeah, he's attacking. This is do or die, because if you miss this, and I've got a table like this, I should be able to finish. All right, so he's got to cut this all the way down and get position for the 8. but he overcuts the ball. Did y'all hear that? There's a little monster barking in my in my living room. Like I said, I'll go get him after this match is over. Golly, I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. All right, what am I doing here? 3-ball, stunned over for the 2. Okay. Does that mean I'm going to go from the 2 to the 4? Or from the 4 to the, or from the 2 to the 6? Well, I'm definitely not going to the 4 now. It's going to be to the 6 and then to the 4. All right, probably a little bit of right spin. Maybe just a touch. Kind of like that. And then where am I playing the 8 in the side, or am I going to draw it for the corner? It looks like I drew it for the corner. I didn't hit it hard. Oh, but my opponent ends up conceding. All right, so there was that one. Also 5-0. So, you know, I can only hope a lot of times when it comes to when I have matches like this, because like my opponents here, these are also, I would consider also these friends of mine, because we always talk about the stuff after the fact, and they would end up coming up to me and asking like, what could I have done differently, or how would I have played a certain position that they were in, and like when I talk about it with them after the matches, and then of course I talk about it again when I do reviews like this. So I would clearly hope that any type of suggestion that I made to my made for my opponents here would help them out if they happen to catch any of these streams, because the only reason why I'm able to do these streams is because they're okay with allowing you all to see this happen to them. So you have to at least give them some sort of appreciation that they allow me to do this, because sometimes I do have opponents who are like, you know, please don't show this on YouTube, and that's regardless if I beat them 5-0 or whatever. And sometimes what I'll end up having to do is I'll have to edit them out, and you only get to see, you know, one side of the match, which is just me playing. So when my opponents allow me to do stuff like this, my hat goes off to them, because they're able to show themselves play, struggle, just like if you watch me struggle, because I've shown matches where I've lost, and hopefully what I can offer them, or what any of y'all could offer them as well, helps them as well as it helps me, as well as it helps the viewers. That's the main reason why I do all this stuff, or at least that I do these matches here. So all I can hope for is that the suggestions that I made for my opponent on this particular match here, especially when he had those ball in hand moments, he can take those to heart and apply them to his next match. And the main theme that we saw here was just me solving problems, you know, all the clusters that were on the table, both in the first match and in this match here, and how I tried to tackle them as quickly as I possibly can. Because I think it's very easy, especially for lower skill level players, not to do that. They're thinking that's just too hard. I'm just going to make balls for the sake of making balls, which is good, right? There's never nothing wrong with making balls, but then you also have to realize that when there's no more balls left to make and there's nothing but clusters left to deal with, you put yourself in that situation. And a lot of times, if you put yourself in that situation, you're more than likely going to lose the rack. So when you're able to identify a trouble spot on the table, try to deal with it as soon as possible. And if you're not able to deal with it, like if you just can't figure it out, well, then sometimes you probably should not be making balls just for the sake of making balls. Depending upon where you are on the skill level ladder, sometimes you might just want to sacrifice a turn and just break up the cluster anyway, right? So that way there's plenty of obstacles that your opponent is going to have to work around as well as you are. So I hope that helps everybody out. Okay. So before I sign off, how many of y'all want to see the monster that was barking in the background? I don't even know if my microphone picked it up. Let me go ahead and get him. I'll be right back. What are you barking at? Huh? Oh. And look at the Look at the puppy. That's not so much of a puppy anymore. If anybody goes back and look at my previous live streams, they'll know how small he was, and he ain't so small anymore. I think he's about 6 months old now, or something. But this is Link. I have Link and Zelda, and this is the miniature Schnauzer, and you can see he's not really happy being here right now. Hey, you need to say hi to everybody. You and Zelda are the reason why I get millions of views on my live streams, which I don't get anyway. Why are you biting me? You're such a goofball. Go on. Okay. Well, that's pretty much going to wrap things up for the live stream. I'm welcome to take a couple of more questions before I end, if anybody has any. Luke B, I do appreciate that. I do have BCA in about 3 hours, so I at least have some time to take a little bit of a break. And based on what I'm seeing, I'm not really seeing any questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and log off for the night. I did, you know what? I did totally forget because I'm usually pretty on top of this, but let's see here. I've got 40 likes in here. If you haven't done so already, please give this stream a thumbs up, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube. It really doesn't matter. If you're on Facebook, I really would appreciate if you share the stream, maybe to your Facebook profile, so that way your friends and family can discover who I am. And if they're learning how to play pool as well, they'll be able to benefit from something like this. Or maybe any of your friends that don't like to play pool or just not interested in playing pool, when they see stuff like this from me, maybe they get interested in playing pool, and it helps us grow the sport. And then, of course, if you're seeing this on YouTube, liking the video helps me out in the YouTube algorithm, so that people can discover the stream after the fact. For everybody that was here with me during this live stream, thank you so much for being here. I wish I can tell you when the next time I'm going to go live. I will say I will try to go live tomorrow night to review the 9-ball matches that I have from the mini 9-ball tournament that I did while I was in Vegas. And then as far as my partner Josh, who we've seen here in the live stream, I'm just going to have to get with him to see when he can come over so we can review our 8-ball Scotch doubles matches that we had in Vegas as well. So at least look, stay tuned for any of those. And then, of course, stay tuned for any of my future content. Take care, everybody.